Can you all hear? So maybe just in the chat. The sound is very good. Awesome. Thank you. Fantastic. Okay. Right. Very excited about tonight. Just to introduce myself, my name is Sandra. For those of you whom I have not met, we have extended this invite to our greater community. So we're excited to welcome you all here tonight. I head Wellness at Generation Schools, and this year we are doing things a little bit differently. So we understand that it takes a village to raise a child, right? And so the more we can join as a community in upskilling and empowering ourselves to feel more equipped to deal with the concerns and developmental issues and beautiful things about children, the better our children will feel supported, valued, seen, and heard. So this year, the wellness team has thought to bring campus-wide and community-wide applications whereby we invite professionals in their specified field to come and share their expertise and knowledge so that we as a community can be more empowered to support our children. So in term one, we welcomed Emma Sadler, who addressed social media and all the changes surrounding that so that us as parents and teachers could address those issues with our students. We also saw to our students being upskilled into the classroom, and that continues for the rest of this year. This term, we answered to a lot of parents in terms of what they were needing support and assistance with. Myself, being a parent to a preteen, I understand that this is it's a very loaded, layered field. And so we will be welcoming Dr. Serahni Symington, who is a psychologist and specialist in parental guidance, in counseling, in play therapy, and all things we might not all be upskilled on in terms of relationships and conflict resolution and all those beautiful things. Dr. Serahni has joined us previously and welcomed our parents and addressed them and upskilled them on various topics. So tonight we are very excited to be introducing our parent and community talk. It is relating to fostering healthy relationships with our preteens and our teens. So, Doctor, are you there?
I am. I hope you can hear me and see me okay.
Yes, all is good from my side. I can see. So welcome. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to share this. And we look so forward to just learning anything you can impart on us and share your wisdom with us. At the end, just so we've discussed, there will be some time for questions and answers. So if there's anything that crops up, please feel free to jot it down. There will be a moment at the end of this presentation whereby we can ask and hopefully get the answers we are searching and requiring. Okay, so thank you. Sit back. I hope you all got a cup of something warm in your hands, and we'll enjoy this time. Awesome.
Thank you, Sandra, and it's always lovely to meet with the parents and with educators. I think, like you said, we need to be collective when raising our children in a new modern society. I was teasing my mom earlier and saying, you know what, when she raised us, things were so simple. There wasn't social media and there wasn't all the information. You know, an 8-year-old has all the information at fingertips. And she said, yeah, you know, that those days we had other issues, you know, getting you guys to stay inside the house when the lights go on in the streets, saying, come, it's time to go home. And times have changed. We're at that stage as parents where we say, oh, please, just go out, you know. So it's a different world. And I'm a mommy as well. I'm a mommy of a preteen. So my daughter is 10 years old and my boy is 5 years old. So we survived toddlerhood and we're going into the preteen season, and then adolescents are awaiting us. So as a mommy, I'm here too, and not just as someone working in the field. So just quickly, some of the background. I work with families in counseling. So my counseling approach has always been that I cannot work with a child if I don't work with the family system. Because I think as a parent, I want to know, what can I do? So I'm hoping tonight, as you listen to some of the information, and it's not just theory, but that at the end of this, you feel, okay, I have some tools in my backpack that I can use. Because I think for me, my wish as a parent, and hopefully you relate to this, but my wish as a parent is that I will have good relationships with my children. And that one day when they're adults, they'll look back fondly of their childhood and of our relationship. So there's holding thumbs that we get this, you know, and I think schools, educators, your groups that you, communities that you belong to also support you in that attempt. So I'm quickly going to share my screen. I have some slides for us. Sandra, can you just confirm that you can see this?
Clearly.
100%. Okay, wonderful. So tweens and teenagers, I think the first thing, let's start with a bit of humor before we go into the heaviness of parenting. But I thought this was quite funny. Not to brag, but I can make my kids angry just by saying good morning. And I think another one for me is I can make my kids angry when they get into the car after school and I ask them, how was your day? You know, so this one's also quite funny for our social media teenagers. The child is asking, the mom is asking, what does IDK, LY, and TTYL mean? And the child responds with the answer by saying, I don't know, love you, and talk to you later. And the mom says, okay, I will ask your sister.
Mommy's learning about all the thingies.
All right. I think someone's mic is just on. I'm hearing some feedback. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So I think it's quite humorous. I think a lot of times, sometimes we have to also take the good in with the bad and laugh a little when we think about this phase specifically. But so if we look at teenagers, so in human development, we have different phases in our life. So we have the infancy, we have toddlers, preschool, then we have the school-going child, and then we usually have the adolescent, which is the teenager. All right. So adolescence in itself has always been seen as this period where a child is confused. They're always in conflict because I'm not a little child. Please don't give me dollies to play with. But it also not an adult. So they can't make certain decisions, do what they need, or what they want to do. So it's just, they're stuck in the middle space between childhood and adulthood. Okay. This has been in all the literature since the early 1900s. So it's not just us who are struggling with this concept. It's been seen as a troublesome period where there's always conflict. So if you're having conflict with your teenager, please know this is completely normal. It's been normal since we started writing research on the adolescent. Okay. So according to theorists, they differ more or less on what the teenager is, and especially in today's day and age, everything starts a bit sooner. But the general consensus is that the adolescent is 12 to 18 years old, which is a long time to be an adolescent. It's 6 years. Where if you think of infancy is 2 years, toddler 3 to 5, the preschool, 5 to 7, then you have 7 to 10. So all of the transitioning periods are usually short and we move on. But in adolescence, it's quite a lengthy process because there's so much happening. But now we have this new category. And we often hear it in the media. I ordered an amazing book that I can't wait to start reading, just called Tweens. And the term that we use for the preteen, we talk about the tween, the in-betweens. So now we've broken up adolescence into even another step. And this is seen as the 8 to 12-year-olds. Okay, so the 8 to 12-year-olds are called tweens because they're between children and teenagers. Okay, so you see how these demarcations just evolve as society grows. So it's very normal for kids at this age to start moving away from being close with parents to wanting to be more independent, like teenagers. Okay, but they don't have the cognitive and emotional maturity yet for the life of a teenager. So they're kind of stuck with this need to want to be big, but being reminded often that I'm not yet. And so parents need to guide them as they go through these transition periods. And we're going to talk about how do we do that? Okay. So change from any developmental phase to another is storm and stress. Just think about this. When your child was a baby, infant, between 0 and 2, what happens when a child crosses over from being a 2-year-old to a 3-year-old? We even have this silly little term for it. We call it the temper tantrums, the terrible twos. because they're transitioning from 2 into 3. Why? Because when I'm 0 to 2, all I needed was to survive. All I needed was safety, food. I wanted my mommy. That's all. Now, as I'm going into becoming 3 years old, suddenly I can walk. People understand what I'm saying, more or less. You know? There's a sense of more independence, and so suddenly the tantrums start. Okay. And then as they go into grade R, that grade R spot where they turn 5, what happens between the 4-5-year-olds? Some of my most of my clients are either teenagers or they're 4, but it's a very tricky space. Okay, again, because of the transitioning. Then when kids go to grade 4, that's when the preteen becomes the tween, and we see a lot of storm and stress, a lot of sibling rivalry, a lot of social peer relationships, a lot of stress happening at that stage as well. Grade 4 is a big year. Then again, grade 9, we see a big shift. And then by grade 12, things start becoming more independent in terms of the journey ahead. So there's these certain transitioning periods. And every time a child transitions and there's change, there's storm and stress. Now, many parents tell me, you know what, Serahni, I never had this with my one child. But when I had my second one, it happened. Or with my first one, I went through all of this. My second born, I never saw this. Because we also need to be mindful when we listen to this discussion and this talk that every child also has a personality. Plus, they have a parent with a specific parenting style. So parenting style, personality traits, along with developmental moments, depict what a child's functioning would look like. I hope that makes sense. All right. So what are the things we do see in the preteen, the tween, going into adolescence? We see a lot of growth, brain matter growth, not even growth in understanding, physical brain matter growth, biological changes, emotional development, psychological changes, social, family, society, peer relationships, and identity. Now, I want to quickly run through some of them because I think if we understand this collectively and we see the child as this whole being, then we kind of know when to push a little bit in terms of establishing boundaries and rules and structure, and when to kind of back off a little bit as parents, because I think that's the dance of parenting. Know when to butt in and know when to butt out. Okay, I think that's the most effective way to parent, and of course the hardest way to parent. Okay, so just in terms of brain development, cognitive development, we know that in the preteen to adolescent, the prefrontal cortex starts to develop. It's the biggest and the last part of the brain that changes, and it changes drastically during this period. So if you look at the image on the screen, you'll see that the red areas where we have our little babies and toddlers, they're 0 to 2 brain, maybe 3-year-old still, they're in that survival state. Am I safe? Are you feeding me? Am I surviving? Am I okay? Right? So that's very survival orientated. Once that brain is established and functioning properly, a child will then, from the age of 3-4 years old, go into emotional state. And that's when we start having those words. You don't like me. Everybody's mean to me. I don't like this and you don't like that. And so they start verbalizing their emotions. We start seeing negative and positive reflection on identity. But there's a lot of words, and sometimes they struggle to regulate the emotional ups and downs. And we call this emotional regulation. Once they go into grade 1, they turn 6, 7, then we start seeing the moments of prefrontal cortex where they start almost, I want to say, playing around in the prefrontal lobes. And that's where they start thinking about morality, thinking about values, thinking about rights and wrongs. That's when the child that last year didn't want to listen to table manners now tells you, Daddy, take your elbows off the table. It's because we start playing in prefrontal cortex. All right. So in the prefrontal cortex, they start the development from age 6 to 7. Then there's heightened growth through adolescence. And only by the age of 22, 23, some theorists even say 24, does that brain fully function optimally, and it's finished. Okay, so we need to know that the biggest part of the brain with most of the growth and the automated responses, decision making, judgment, impulse control, all of those things need to develop when they're teenagers. Okay, so can you understand that when a child one day comes home and you think like, the homework's done, the room's clean for a change, what is happening with my child? What do they want? And they're doing so well. And then 2 days later, they have these complete moments of stupidity. And you think, like, how is this the same child? Because of this back and forth in development. Okay. And the impulse control and the problem solving centers not functioning optimally yet. Okay. So if that part of the brain is still under construction, if this prefrontal is not working 100% all of the time, okay, and as an adult, I must say mine doesn't work 100% all of the time. So imagine if it's not even finished. Now, how bad can it get? So if this prefrontal cortex is still under construction, then we know that the teenagers and the teens are living in the amygdala and in that emotional space, okay? And so sometimes parents are very concerned about heightened emotions. And we're going to see that in our next slide when we talk about emotions. Okay. The one thing we do know is biological development. I mean, who hasn't had a discussion on puberty? I think the kids are so over it in the school curriculum also. What your body is changing and your ears are changing and your hormones are changing and parts of your body is growing certain things, and so the kids are very aware of the puberty discussion. And I think as parents and in the media and watching movies, this is kind of the one that's always thrown on the screen and saying, like, when teenagers develop, this is what they're struggling with, hormones, and that's that, period. But I think it's so much more than that. Understanding that the impulse control is still shaky. They struggle with decision-making processes. They struggle to be organized at times. And when I say organized, and parents say, my child does not struggle with organization. In fact, they are a perfectionist. When one thing is out of place, they will lose it. If it's not perfect, they will lose it. So don't tell me my child doesn't have organization skills, but that's also not a good skill. They need to find a balance between being organized and being flexible. So if I'm overly organized or not organized at all, both of them are things that fall out of place and cause either stress or anxiety or conflict within the family system. So we need to understand that organizational brain plus the biology, both of them have a very big impact on the behavior of the teen or the adolescent. All right. And this is the one that I see the most, of course, in the work that I do in terms of psychological changes. So what we often see is that parents are very concerned about depression and anxiety in adolescents because adolescents and teenagers struggle with emotional regulation. So it's almost, I often say, it's almost like having that 3-year-old's emotions back in your 13-year-old's body. All right. So if you think back on that emotional, then I'm crying, then I'm happy, then I'm sad. It's excessive, it's heightened, it's very happy, or it's depressed, So that in between space, they struggle to find, again, like with organizational skill, they're even hectically perfectionist and they stress themselves out, or they struggle just by remembering their books, packing everything in, making sure it's organized, planning for the exam and sticking to the exam timetable. The teens struggle with that a lot. I try and help with that planning a lot in the office. Moods, moodiness, of course, also all the hormonal aspects. Depression, loneliness, self-rejection, stress, anxiety, and confusion are some of the emotional pockets that we find our teens in. And I think the hard question when we do counseling and support for adolescents is sometimes to know what is normal and what is abnormal. So the first thing I want to teach parents is that how do we determine whether a child is having normal behavior or whether we should, contact someone to help with the depression or anxiety? So the biggest question I have when your child is struggling emotionally is, number one, how are they sleeping? Or can they still sleep well or sleep Are they oversleeping or undersleeping? All right, so sleep is one of our indicators that we look for. Diet, how are they eating? Are they restricting their food, or are they overeating and eating in a sneaky way, hiding food or getting up 2 o'clock in the morning and going to the cupboard, etc. So sleep, eat. Then in terms of functionality, with activities that they were usually good at. Say they were usually very good at their schoolwork and suddenly they don't show interest, they don't have any motivation, they don't even want to go to school. So there's a lack of motivation for things they prior to this low spell have been good at, and also loss of interest in fun activities. So say, for example, the child is a very sporty child, they're always outdoors, always playing, kicking a ball, always wanting to go out with friends. Now suddenly withdraws to the room and never goes out. It's out of nature. So those 4 things: sleeping, eating, not doing as well in activities that they usually did, or losing interest in activities that they usually lost interest to. Those 4 things, if you're concerned about that, then we look further. All right? Because at the end of the day, if a child is still functional, they're still going to school, they're still getting the marks that they usually get, they still have friends, they still enjoy being outside and doing sports, even if it's for the C team, they're still playing, even if it's for the F team, they're still playing, then we know it's normal fluctuations. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I hope you write down any questions if it doesn't make sense. All right. But the good thing is, what I like about teenagers and working with teenagers, I specialized in adolescence in my master's year and focused just on adolescent development, specifically pertaining to the fact that adolescents have much more information exposure. Okay, they have so much more information than we ever had at our age. So they bombarded with messages every day. And so I focus a lot on working with teens, and I work with them a lot at the practice. And the one thing that I enjoy about teenagers the most is this slide. We can make a list of all the changes, all the stuff they struggle with, all the conflict moments. But there's also some incredibly beautiful and good emotions within a teenager. I think about pride because I think about schools having inter-house and sports mornings and kids singing their school song and wearing their blazer or getting their badges or whatever it is at the school that gives them pride. And I always tell principals in schools, if you can get into that pride spot, you've got them. As soon as you can create a sense of pride with a teenager, something shifts in the emotional space. Okay. Love, of course, not only romantic relationships, okay, but love for friends, devotion towards a family system. If they do have a tight-knit family, although they move away, that's the hub that they come back to give feedback of what they've picked up outside. And that's what I want to work on as a mom, is having that devotional space where my child feels safe in my love and knows what love is. Okay. Also with teenagers, joy. Oh man, when they're up, they're up. Okay. I remember my brothers, I have 2 brothers who are older than me. And when they were having a good day, I mean, they would pick up my mom in the kitchen, they would pick me up and throw me over the couch. It was just all fun and games and laughter and teasing. Joy. There were such joy moments along with all the conflict. Interest, especially in things that they are interested in. And this is where we as parents struggle. I remember when I was younger, the music I listened to, my parents were like, what is this? We'll try and listen to it, but it's weird. The music I was listening to, the clothes I was wearing, the pop culture items and the trends, my parents didn't always get that. But what was always so nice for me as a teenager was that they would show interest, although they didn't share a common love for it. There was a sense of interest, because teenagers do have so many different interests. Okay, I'm not even going to go into the prime discussion, but just as a point of trends, following what's new, everything that's shiny and new, kind of teenagers like to evolve around, and they love knowing the trends. I mean, a teenager can make a top 10 playlist of songs before a radio station has made the top 10 playlist of songs. They are so involved in the pop culture. And it doesn't necessarily mean pop culture in the way that we see, you know, music, for example, but a teenager that their personality might be into books. They will know which books are amazing to read. Or a teenager that's into sports, they will know all the new sports heroes. I remember my brother was such a big, or still is, Formula One fan. He would know who races when, where, what his time was, where they would be positioned. I don't even know half of it. But there was interest in something, and then they hyper-focus. And then we as parents often say, I wish you would be so focused on your schoolwork as you are in, you know, Minecraft or whatever they focused on. My daughter is 10 years old at the moment, is so into music. And she has a playlist and a playlist and a playlist and a playlist. And I'm always saying, softer, just a bit softer in the house. It's that it is. And I think the tweens start there a lot. I often feel like they are more bought into the culture where a teenager can choose what part of the culture they focus on. And then also gratitude. I find that when I work with the teenagers and we start around things that they are thankful for, they get really philosophical. Have your tween journal. If your tween likes writing and drawing, get them an art journal, get them a creative journal. You get all these journals. I know My Story Tribe does an amazing journal for tweens and teens where there's prompts around who are you, how are you, what do you enjoy, what are you thankful for? And so that focus on gratitude and appreciation. I know my daughter writes me the most beautiful cards for birthdays and Christmas and Mother's Day. You get the most amazing emotion. It's almost in a way over the top, but beautiful over the top, because of the sense of gratitude. So I almost want to pause on this slide for a little bit and ask you to take a screenshot with your camera on your phone or something, just to focus on these emotions when you work with your tween and your adolescent. Right. The one we also know along with puberty is social development. So we know in the 50s already, Erik Erikson, who was a psychologist back then, a very well-known theorist who wrote on how people grow, how we develop, how we change over age specifically. He said that in every age group, there's conflict. Okay. Like, for example, if we look at our school-going kids at the age 6 to 8, he said the conflict that a school-going child that starts school has is industry versus inferiority. So we often see with the littlies starting primary school or pre-primary school that they often try and figure out how the school system works. How are they in industry? How do I please teacher? How do I do this right? How do I read? How do I do my math? And then when I don't get industry right, what is the conflict? Inferiority. I can't do this. This is too hard. I'm dumb. Okay. So when we look at the tween and the adolescent, Erikson then wrote and said, the conflict within the tween is to be an individual, but not to be different from our group. So you see how conflicting that is. I want to be part of the group. I want to belong. I want to have a space where I belong, whether it's an online friend of groups, online friend group that I belong to. I see a lot of the teens navigating online because the people get me. You know, I often hear teenagers saying, these people get me, my parents don't get me, or my friends at school don't get me. Okay, I want to belong to the group. Okay, but in the belonging, I find identity. And sometimes that's where the conflict ends, because we know as grown-ups, you have to find yourself first before you can actually put yourself in the right spaces and pockets, because otherwise you're influenced instead of making a contribution. And so that's part of some of the counseling that I also do, is finding self so that we can place self in healthy spaces. But this is a very big one, wanting to belong. And all of us want to belong. It's one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We want that belonging. But we have the prefrontal cortex, the cognitive development, the impulse control to know when relationships are toxic or not. The tween doesn't have that maturity yet. The tween is getting there. By 16, 17, you'll see the friend dynamic and the belonging shifts. And I say grade 11, grade 12 is kind of they find their groove with friendships. But the positive thing is that Berger wrote is that most adolescents, most of the time are happy and healthy, worthy of admiration and respect, not suspicion or fear. And I think as parents, and I say us because I'm so scared. I'm always fearful. My grandmother said to me when I told her I was pregnant with my firstborn, she said to me, the fear never goes away. You're always concerned for your kids. You're always scared. And so it's sometimes hard to overcome that sense of fear for what if I'm not doing a good job? What if I'm pushing my child away? What if I don't get them? All right. So here we go. Let me summarize. I feel so out of breath. I hope you're still with me. But let me summarize. So in summary, the tween between 8 and 12 is a precursor to the adolescent. In that space, the prefrontal cortex is very low, and logic, reasoning, decision making, boundary setting, all of those things is really a big struggle for the tween. And so I think the biggest conflict between tweens and parents are that they don't understand why we say no, and they don't understand why we set boundaries. And when we go into adolescence, there is a bigger sense of understanding, but now the job of the adolescent is to move away from the family system. And that breaks my heart as a mom to think that it must happen. The child needs to move away from the family system, establish their identity, whether they're sporty, whether they want to be in the medical field, whether they want to be an artist. They kind of try and figure out, where do I fit in this world? And I can't do that with you because once I'm 18, I need to be able to be a grown-up, an adult. And if I was too kept inside, then that growth towards becoming an adult cannot happen. Now, I'm not saying let your child go, let them do what they want, let them go out, let them explore. I'm just saying there's a natural wanting to do that, and we need to navigate and structure and scaffold around that so that although they're exploring, they're doing it safely. And I think that is the hard part to do. So how do we do this? Listen more than you speak. Many a times I've caught myself wanting to say things to my daughter, but I don't. I say to myself, just listen. Just listen. Because as I listen, sometimes her moral reasoning comes through. And while she's saying, I hear you, okay, tell me more. And how did that feel? She sometimes talks herself out of things. If I just give it time, if I don't overreact or respond too quickly and I just listen, many times I'm astounded with the insight that she can bring when I allow her to talk through it. So sometimes we need to listen more than we speak. We go into problem-solving mode as parents. As soon as the child says, Mom, you know what, today at school, this girl told me I'm fat. And you go, how can you say that? That's not real. Go look. Do you want to go stand and I'll show you what is fat? You know who's fat. Don't climb on it. And suddenly we go into fight and flight response like 3-year-olds. And we do that because we love our kids and we're good parents. But sometimes when you just listen, we can hear that they might then go on to say, and for a minute, I felt like that wasn't really cool of her. And I just decided I'm not even going to listen to her. So you could have had that response instead of your own response. So sometimes it's just good to listen. The second one, understand their angst. Understand the emotional ups and downs. If they rush into the house and they're irritated and they're frustrated, I think just take a minute, breathe for yourself. And I know it triggers parents. When our kids are upset, it triggers our upset. It's just normal. But sometimes I ask myself, why am I triggered? Why is my child's emotional dysregulation at the moment where she's like a thundercloud around her head walking into the house, I just want to go to my room, Why does that trigger me? Because I always thought you greet your parents, you show respect, you're not doing it at the moment. And so sometimes I need to figure out when is the correct moment to address that with her. When there's a thundercloud on her head, as soon as I address respect and greeting someone, there will be a fight. But if I send thundercloud to her room saying, love, this has been a hard day, do what you need to, I'll chat with you soon. And I wait for the thunder to lift. Then I can go sit on a bed and I say, buddy, listen, this was hard. You had a hard moment. But you know how mom felt? I really felt like you could have just said, hi mom, sorry, I'm not feeling great, I'll chat with you soon. And that would have changed the whole dynamic. But I felt disrespectful. What do you think? Do you think, and having a conversation around that? I'm still coaching, I'm still teaching discipline, I'm still telling her what I expect and how I'm feeling. It's just the way and the timing of it. Because that salvages relationship. We go into conflict too quickly, or I do. Show an interest in their interests. This is amazing when I do counseling. If I ask a teenager, what is your thing? What do you? And they say, I'm so into Pinterest at the moment. I'll say, can you show me? Can you show me your Pinterest? What are you following? What are you pinning? Or if they're on Instagram, who do you follow? Who are your influencers? And suddenly it's like the child doesn't stop talking. That's not my interest. I'm not into social media. I don't even like social media most of the time, but I'm showing an interest. And one thing I know about adolescents is they like to teach us. They like to teach. So often when I do talks at school, I ask the kids, I say to them, when you got your phone, did you ask your mom to download WhatsApp and all your apps for you? And then they laugh and they say, no, I show my mom how to download all her WhatsApps and her apps for her. Okay. So they are very keen to teach us things and do things for us and go, oh, mom, let me just do it for you, and then they quickly sort you out. All right. I feel like sometimes as a parent, I want to have these big moments with my kids. I want to have like a Friday afternoon off where I can take them and we can go have a milkshake and movie and we can go shopping and do all these things together because that's connection. But it isn't. That's a special occasion. Connection needs to happen every day in small moments. Okay, connection can be a special way you greet each other. It can be in the car on the way to school. It can be on the car on the way back. Just saying like, just let's play 20 questions, and having fun moments in the car. Asking them to choose. Here's my phone. Choose our playlist for the ride home. Everyday small connections where a child feels to have your undivided attention, even if it's 5 to 20 minutes. My biggest thing I teach parents of small children is how you greet your child when they see you for the first time after school builds connection. So when a child jumps in the car and you go like, okay, how was your day? Okay, wait, mom's just, okay, yeah. You're not making connection. When I stop at the school, I switch everything off, take a breath. And when my child gets into the car, I don't start the car immediately. I look at my kids and I say, I've missed you. I'm so happy to see you. It's good to be with you again. Don't ask about their day. I don't try and pull things out of them. I really just try and show them that I have missed our connection. And since I've been doing that, especially with my boy, now he climbs into the car and he says, Mom, I've missed you. It's good to see you. And they start giving it back to me. And that's, it's beautiful. Right. So with all of this discussion, and I talk from a space of conscious parenting, if you're wondering where my approach comes from. But I think the one biggest concern with many people that read on conscious parenting says, yeah, but there's no rules and boundaries. And we know that with parenting styles, boundaries and rules come into play with authoritarian parents. So there's 4 different types of parents: authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and the neglectful parent. Okay. Neglectful parent, we know it's the one doesn't really care, doesn't pitch up, doesn't show interest in school or academics or sport or anything. Neglectful parent, not really parenting. Permissive parent is a hard one because permissive parents have very good intentions. They love their kids almost too much, if you can love your child too much. And they just allow everything as a result. You want a cookie, take 3. If teacher says no sugar, I'll sneak you one in the side of your bag. Just don't show your teacher, So permissive parents follow the rules of the child and they give in very quickly. And there's no real structure, boundaries, routine, sleep times, wake up times, toothbrush time, hygiene, food control, sleep control. So those type of things aren't in place. The authoritarian parent is the one that has rule setting with adaptability and flexibility, rule setting with warmth. So that's the parent that says there's certain non-negotiables. Sleep time is a non-negotiable. Screen time, limits or the non-negotiables. So there's certain things in our house that we chat around the dinner table around what do we not negotiate on. Those have consequences. Negative consequences that are natural. If you make a mess, you clean it up, type of thing. And then the authoritative, the fourth parent, that's the, I almost want to say the Hitler parent. My say goes, you don't have a say. I give the rule, you listen, there's no discussion. So you go to bed every night at 8, even if it's holiday, even if it's Christmas, that's the rule. You know, there's no flexibility around certain things that are smaller issues. All right. So in research, it shows us that the parent that has the best result in terms of long-term success with child behavior and good behavior is the third parent, the one with warmth plus rule setting, the one who has structure, the one who has a routine, the one who has boundaries and consequences, but is also open to discussion when kids want to talk about things. Mom, I'm 10 now. My daughter said to me the other day, she's not allowed, okay, I'm very hectic. She's not allowed a phone. She's not allowed social media. There's many things that she's not allowed. And she said, but I want to talk about, can I now start watching the 9+ show on the Netflix channel, for example? And I said to her, I'll first want to go and see what on 9+ shows, because she's 10. Anyway, so the thing is, I said to her, let's talk about it. Let's look at the shows you want to watch. Tell me what your friends are watching, and I'll watch it with you, and we can decide whether or not you feel it's appropriate and when I feel it's appropriate. But I'm open to discussing that. And I think that's where the shift comes in. Okay. Spending time, I think that's a big thing. Yeah, I think in today's rush society, spending time with our kids has become hard because it's not always that we are so busy, but they are so busy. I mean, I think about our week. Mondays after school, there's stuff. Tuesdays after school, there's stuff. Wednesdays, Thursdays, even Friday afternoons, we have stuff. And then Saturdays or match days or quiet days or performance days, etc. And Sundays, it's almost like it's just coming up for air before everything else starts up again. So it's almost finding pockets of one-on-one time. So another example, what we do is we try and do one-on-ones at least once a month, and my husband and I rotate. So I'll take my girl, he takes my boy, and then once a month with my boy, once a month. So they both get 2 individual long-term, that 3 hours, spoil them, do something fun with them, go to the park, go to the beach, just me and her, paint our nails. Sometimes we take our books and we go drawing in the park with a flask of tea. And we have tea in the park and draw for 2 or 3 hours, just her and me, while the boys go play something, soccer or whatever they do. But we try and do those big special connections once a month with each, and then the small everyday connections that are easy to do in our flow of our day. All right. Then a very big thing with adolescents, I'm almost done. A very big thing is don't overreact immediately. If a child comes to you and tells you the truth, Mom, I need to fess up something. This has happened. How you respond will determine whether they come to you again with the truth. Take a minute. Breathe. Thank them for telling you the truth. And then go into a discussion on how to deal with this collectively. They're not getting away with it. They're not reprimanded. They know they're in trouble. Our rule in our house is, if you come tell me the truth, we'll figure it out together. If I have to find it out, I need to figure it out on my own. And then there will be punishment. Not punishment, it sounds so harsh, but there will be consequences. So my daughter runs to me the other, she's like, remember our rule if I tell you the truth. And that is our rule. If you come tell me the truth, then we can work it out and I'll stay calm. Because now she tells me the truth. Every time something happens, I know first. And that's amazing. And I hope it stays that way. I hope so. I'm doing my best. Encourage open conversations. I often sit with the kids when we're on holiday or we're camping somewhere. I say, like, what do you think about this? You know, or what do you think about, like, living overseas? Where uncle moved overseas. So we had this massive discussion the other day about what it would be like to live overseas and live in Europe and have like this different life and talk different languages. Just open conversations about life. I feel like that also gives me insight into what they're thinking. And then the last thing I think very important is to coach and mentor our kids. Our kids often lack skill. They lack a skill to do certain things. A small example, I have a girl that I was been seeing, and she would come and she would say, in a new school, teachers placed me with this friend, and I don't like playing with this friend because she's so bossy. I said to her, have you ever tried to tell her, could I also pick, or can I also take a turn? She's like, I never thought of that. I will ask her tomorrow. And when she came back a week later, she said, I asked her, I said to her, can I also have a turn to pick the game? And she said, sure. And I picked the game, and now we're getting on nicely. I gave her a skill. I mentored her. I gave her some guidance, and suddenly it changed and shifts, because I think sometimes kids aren't necessarily naughty or on purpose trying to push boundaries. They don't have a certain skill yet. Think of a 3-year-old. They can't share. That skill doesn't exist. They have never sat with another friend thinking like, you need to take my stuff. Are you going to give it back? How does this work? If I give it to you and I share it with you, do I get to take it back? When do I get to take it back? How long do I need to wait? I don't even know the concept of time. How long is 2 minutes to wait? 2 minutes feels long. So they're developing a skill along with time management, along with all these different things. And as they grow, those skills become more demanding. How to make friends, how to keep friends, how to talk with grown-ups, how to have conflict with your teacher when you don't agree with a grade. What do I say? What is respectful? What is not respectful? And I feel those conversations I want my kids to come and talk to me about, so I can coach and mentor them. Have you thought of this? What if you say this? How would it feel if you wrote your teacher a letter? And we start co-creating solutions. Okay. But with teenagers specifically older than 12, when we start problem solving their problems and issues, they have to co-create, because we want that scaffolding in the brain to be able to make good decisions. And they will only be able to make good decisions when we offer them guidance, advice, and show them how making decisions will look like. Okay, it's a mouthful. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Serahni, are you there still? Oh, you're frozen. Just one moment while we see if she's still there.
Sorry.
You're there. Good.
I'm here.
There was
when I stopped sharing the screen, I think I accidentally logged out.
Oh, shame. There was a request just to go back to a previous slide for a quick screenshot. Jennifer, are you there? Could you make reference to the screen you were referring to? It was just before practical advice, was it?
No,
This one.
it's the one before social development.
This one.
Yes. Thank you.
And I think we had somebody with their hand up at some stage.
Okay, can I stop sharing? There we go. I'm happy to do any questions if there are.
And Matt has his hand up.
Yes, Matt.
Yeah, hey Sandra, hey Serahni. I'd like to know how do you deal with a teen or a tween when they're experiencing like mood swings?
I think for every mood swing, there's triggers. So things happening at school, maybe something underlying. So it's often a case of, I think for the first time, trying to see the patterns of when the mood swings happen. Sometimes there's triggers for the mood swings, to know at the end of the day, after school. Sometimes they're very low after school, but then right before bedtime, that 20 minutes before bedtime, then they chat. To know when to choose the time to chat and to kind of pick up patterns with some of the teens or the tweens. The other thing is also in terms of regulation skills. So every child is energy that they put out and energy that they take in. So what happens a lot is if kids have a long day, say for example, they wrote a test and they didn't sleep well and the friend was being nasty, it's like the capacity fills up and somewhere they need to blow off steam. So it's finding what releases that energy. So some of the teenagers would tell me they would just like to be in their room and journal for a bit after school. And then I often encourage them, tell your parents what you need to blow off steam. What is that thing that helps you to blow off steam? Some would say, I just want to go start outside on the swing. I know my daughter, when she tells me I'm going to the trampoline, I know, leave me alone. I need to regulate. So there's a lot of times it's a body function that they need, whether it's jumping on the trampoline, whether it's going for a walk with the dog, whether it's something like listening to music or journaling. Sometimes just finding what blows off steam so that you can create that space for them. I think for me as an adult, when I have a moody day, or, in Afrikaans, we talk about mislik. We say the word mislik a lot in this house. When you're feeling mislik, when you're feeling low, what is the thing that you can do to blow off that energy so that you can get into a better space? It's not something we can often just switch. Sometimes it's intentional self-care work, but we need to figure out what is self-care for them. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. That did help. I just want to put a question on this little burst of energy before bedtime as well. Like, are we the only parents who experience that, or is it like a trend? Is it like 10 to 8, like full of beans, wants to jump around and go crazy? And it's like, well, hang on, it's like bedtime now,
100%. So we do see energy surges just before bedtime. So what happens is as the evening starts getting low and we start shutting down, processing starts to happen. So kids process their days, and because the prefrontal cortex isn't always there logically, the body goes into a flat spin. So it's almost as though the body wants to process every piece of grass the foot touched, every sound the ear heard, every smell, every thought, everything now suddenly rushes to the fore and starts being processed. And then sometimes we see that body fall out. And that's why we often encourage when we go to bed that there needs to be a half an hour of quiet time and downtime for that body to regulate. So what we do at home, for example, if my kids need to be in bed at 8 o'clock, 7:30, we call it quiet time. So they can go into their room, they can color, they can listen to music. We do quiet, soft things. We even dim the lights and play soft music. It's crazy in this house. But anyway, just to create calm in those moments. And that's usually my check-ins. So I do a 10-minute with my boy, a 10-minute with my girl, while each of them have quiet time. So just regulate that space. Some people even, I have a doctor who says at that time you must also give them something nutritional as a snack because their blood sugar levels are wonky by then, especially if they eat supper earlier. To give them a yogurt or something nutritional so that they can snack just before bedtime, because that also settles them sometimes. Because a lot of kids ask, I'm hungry, and you think like it's 10 to 8, you need to sleep by, why are you hungry now? But there is that sense of normality just before bedtime because of the processing, the body processing, and also processing of the day, and the sense of loss. I have to go to sleep now. The day is now lost. It's over. And so sometimes I struggle with a sense of loss before bedtime, but we just need to push through.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. I think because of load shedding, we're all sitting in that dim light in the evenings anyway, but thanks for the advice. Thank you.
100%. Anthony, I think your hand is up.
Hi there. Actually, it's Anthony's wife, Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi there. Thanks so much. It's been very informative. Really, really good. I just wondered how you deal with a tween when they won't let go of something. So they think they're right, and it's screaming and stamping and crying. It's out of control. I don't quite know how to keep calm and kind of, just end that nicely. It just kind of goes on too long.
I hear you. I don't know if you've maybe tried to do this already, but I try and encourage my daughter when she goes into that space, especially with trends and stuff that the kids have, or, like this whole Prime thing was so annoying to me, but let's not go into that. But I usually have her do a pro and con list that we can discuss, and we organize a meeting where we connect first. So there's connection before correction.
Okay.
And I organize a little meeting with her. I said, love, I can see this is something that's very pressing on you. I want to listen and hear your thoughts, because sometimes I just want to be heard,
Yeah.
and to give her homework, say go make a pro and con list. Mom's going to make a pro and con list, and then we compare notes over tea in the park, you know, and you do a soft moment to talk about hard things.
Okay, that's really good. Thank you. I've never looked at it that way, so that's really good. I'll try that. My husband Anthony actually is here too, and he wants to ask something. That's okay.
100%.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, very, very important, especially the part of going to bed and then eating something and low blood sugar. So that was but it's more with our particular daughter was very good at playing chess, and then all of a sudden didn't want to do any chess lessons. That didn't want to go, made all the excuses, and I was trying to encourage her to go, which ended up in a massive fight. So whenever I mention the word chess, there's just massive drama going on. How do you work through that then, and trying to get, you know, we've spoken about did something happen, did someone say anything, but you know, so far nothing.
That's interesting, because I would like to uncover the why. Why not now? Is she tired of chess? Is it become something that she doesn't enjoy anymore? Would she rather do something else? Does she just want to take a break for a term and pick it up next term? Is she feeling overwhelmed with schoolwork? Is the schedule too full? So there might be a range of reasons why now suddenly that has happened. I share that because there's certain things that your kids do that are good activities. Like chess is an amazing activity for a child, for logic and all of the other reasons. But so I think it's trying to figure out what it is, and I think not to pressure too much, because then she's going to hate chess forever. Just saying the word chess is going to be a fight. To rather say, you know, let's take a breather, let's take a little break, and then revisit this in a month or two, because maybe her schedule is too full, she's feeling overwhelmed. And if she sees that you don't push too hard, maybe she's open to trying again. We had the same thing with my daughter with violin. She played for 4 years, and then suddenly one day she said, too many hours of practice, I'm too tired, I can't do school and this and violin. And I said to her, let's talk about the pros and cons again, let's have the tea in the garden and whole shebang. And we decided to stop for a term, and she went back to see a concert of a friend who was playing, and she started up again because she felt like she missed it. And I think like we handled that well, to not pressure. I did say to her, and I think it's important, that it is a good activity. I like that you do that. But we can be flexible in maybe taking a break for now. I don't know if that's within your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean, I struggled because she was naturally good at it. I mean, at 4 or 5, we were playing chess and checkers, and she won a competition, came third. You know, so for me, there's the natural talent there already.
No, you don't want to waste. Yeah,
and I can't find the why, but we'll try. Thank you. No, thank you. We'll give it a go.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Awesome. I think last question from Heather, and I think Sandra, we're going to end off. I think Sandra said she wants to finish at exactly the time to let parents go into their evening routines. So Heather, you have the last question.
Oh, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
100%.
Okay, brilliant. Just I asked the question on the chat, and Sandra did ask in what means, like a picky teen. Like, how do I deal where one day he likes spaghetti bolognese, one day he hates it, one day his school sandwiches, I put mayonnaise on, the next day he hates mayonnaise. How do I keep up with what he likes?
I'm not laughing at you. I think this is a big problem, and I think so many parents can relate to this. I get in trouble for lunchboxes almost every day. Yesterday, I put my girl's lunchbox into my boy's bag, and there was a man because I don't do pineapple and I don't do whatever. But I think it's having a discussion on certain staple foods that's always going to be in the lunchbox, and I think we can't. I'm going to say a difficult thing, and this is my perception, and I'm not always right. But I think we can't cater too much, because then that becomes the expectation, and that child goes on a school camp or that child goes on a sports tour, and they don't give the food that he wants. So I think I almost want to say use clean foods that are easy to eat, like fruits and, cheese sandwich instead of having funny things, and try and keep the lunchbox as clean as possible for 2 reasons. If they're hungry, they will eat. I have a pediatrician who says, put a plate of food on the table, leave it there. If they're hungry, they'll eat it, and I said,
I've got to the point
you don't have kids.
I've got to the point of butter on bread.
but you know, the thing is, at the end of the day, if we become catering to every little picky need, then that is a skill that we take away from them to be able to go to a dinner and have a supper with people. Don't eat the carrots if you don't like the carrot, but have the peas, you know, when you go for dinner, to show at least some respect for whoever's cooked a meal. And I think it starts with stuff like lunch boxes. So to keep it clean, use clean foods as much as possible. If he's hungry, he will eat. And yeah, as long as he has a good breakfast in the morning, I feel like he will get through the day. But if he's hungry, he'll eat. I think so.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, Sandra, I'm done. I'm tapping out.
Beautiful. Awesome. I thank you so, so much. I'm sure there are more questions popping up. I'm going to pop my email address in the chat box so that you can email me directly. As Serahni has said, that she will happily answer a few questions should there be more. I hope that today just brought a bit of hope for us as parents to preteens and teens, and even when you're not even close to that, just hope, because collectively I think we all share very similar concerns and issues. You're not alone. So the people that asked, am I the only one that's dealing with it? No. We could share some more stories, and I'm sure we could stay for another 2-3 hours on that. So I hope that there was hope delivered today. And I think if there is anything stirring in your gut, the most powerful intuition we hold is that of a parent. So if there is something that is concerning you, please reach out to one of our wellness coaches, to one of your educators. We have a community of people who deal with this, so please do reach out, have a conversation, perhaps just be coached through a few things that you're unsure of or weren't modeled as a child growing up and need to ask those questions. We have that available to you. And then there was a very important topic that was brought up, and nutrition. I'm big on that, and I know for myself what's helped us in terms of mood swings and just bedtime routines and moments of anxiousness is supplementation and diet, magnesium, omegas. Are we getting enough hydration during the day? So let's not overlook the smaller things, but perhaps that's a talk that we would have in the future with the doctor assisting with those conversations. But I just thank you all for your time tonight. Please email me for any further questions, and if there's anything you're needing more assistance with, please feel free to reach out to your wellness coach at your campus. I'm always available as well on email and on my line. I look forward to our next parent webinar, which will be in term 3. There might be one that comes up. It's been a request from the greater community and not just Generation Schools, but the topic of vaping, which we as community are dealing with. We're seeing a huge epidemic right now with our youth, and we've got some of the clinics in our area and doctors to weigh in on this topic. So look out for that communication. That should go out shortly. Wishing you all a beautiful, restful evening. Take one deep breath in and out. You're doing good as a parent, okay? And if you're feeling you're needing some more support, we're all here, okay? Go well. See you all, hopefully too soon.
Thank you. Bye.
I'm hungry. She got ice cream.
Thank you so much. It was amazing.
Video. She's here.
See, we got a last few people attending. Is everyone cool? We got Brian, we got Lindsay, we got Francois, we got Tony and Bronwyn. All good? We're going to end. Hello. Hello.